So for example here, this is a entry-level Squier Mustang. Mustang also, if you are brand new to guitar, especially if you're teenager or younger, if your hands haven't fully developed yet, the Mustang is truly the entry-level guitar for the Fender lineup. It has a shorter 24-inch scale, which means that it's going to be easier to play. It's going to have less tension on the strings, so it allows for easier bends. You don't have to press the strings as hard. I believe there are other products that they offer with the 24-inch neck. I believe there's a Strat, that's a short scale where they basically put a Mustang neck on a Strat body. But basically the shorter scale is going to allow easier playability. And honestly, for the price level, these are quite excellent guitars. Something that surprised me about this one in particular is that this actually has a one-piece in terms of the neck and fretboard. On an entry-level guitar, that's crazy. You can see the skunk stripe on the back where they put the truss rod in, but this is actually truly a one-piece neck, and it's in a not quite semi-gloss, probably put it kind of as a matte or eggshell. The neck is really fantastic. I mean, it's an entry-level guitar, but it plays quite nicely. It's got a cool retro vibe. The Sonic line are thinner, so that means that they are lighter. They're gonna have a thinner body, and these are exactly, if you're just starting out, this is exactly the kind of guitar that you'd be able to get reasonably affordable, and it's not junk. It is a good playable guitar. And I bought this one new. It was a scratch and dent from Amazon, but I bought it new and did very little to it in order to get it set up and ready to play, and it sounds quite good. It's not a bad guitar, especially considering that price point. Now here's the next level. This is going to be an Affinity. This is their Affinity Telecaster. Here's the little Affinity mark. These used to be known, I believe, as Standards. And again, the names change, but generally you've got that bass level, which right now is the Sonic. This is going to be then the next one up. Just a little bit more nicely apportioned. The finishes tend to be a little bit nicer. This is, now you're talking the $200 to $300 range, depending on the exact model. One of the nice things about a Telecaster as an early guitar is that the bodies are very easy to manufacture, so they tend to be on the cheaper side of the spectrum because it takes less machining. It plays very well, and it was not a huge investment. I bought this one used from a young man who had picked up guitar and then dropped it, and his mother said, "I'm sure it'll get more use in your hands," and I probably used it more within the first couple days of having it, just noodling around on it and playing around with it. But it's a perfectly capable instrument, and so you're basically getting a little bit nicer apportionment, just a little bit nicer finishes, and some more options start opening up at the Affinity level. Here's another Affinity level. This is an Affinity Strat, and I just wanted to highlight this one because this finish is a really beautiful candy red, just very, very nice finish. Now, as I've discussed this one in some other videos, the finish is thinner. You can see some damage there, and so it chips more easily than a higher level instrument, and that's a lot of the cost reduction. There's going to be cost reduction in a number of ways. Making the body less contoured, as doing less machining and that sort of thing is one way, but primary way for less money being put into these is less coats and faster coats. So these tend to be more of like a shell in terms of the paint. It's put on very fast, it's hard dried, buffed, and it's gone. Factory finish. this is a very, very nice looking instrument. It's got the nice, I believe this is the laurel. Sometimes they come in rosewood, sometimes they come in laurel. Very similar wood. The neck, very nicely done. And like I said, the body, it's got a really beautiful candy red coat on it and plays quite well. And so again, this is an affinity level. This is going to run you, I think the Strats are a little more, about $280 or so, maybe $300 new, but in the $200 to $300 new, and you can find them for less, of course, used. These are the kind of things that you can find very regularly in pawn shops and so forth, because students tend to pick them up, they don't get into it, sits in the closet, and they, oh, I need 50 bucks, and they go and they turn it into 50 bucks at the pawn shop, that sort of thing. So if the Bullet or Sonic and the Affinity or Standard are basically the gateway, the entry level, they're perfectly playable instruments, but they're very basic, very basically apportioned. You can move up to a next level, and there's a number of different products at this $300 to $500 range. This is a rather unusual example, and I'll tell you, and I haven't done a video on this one yet, this is a fantastic guitar. It actually is really, really cool, and it's weird. This is a vintage modified. So they do these limited production runs of these where they'll do some sort of modification. They'll change something up, the neck shape, or in this case they had Seymour Duncan designed. That means if it says Duncan designed, it's a Duncan spec, but it is made overseas. Seymour Duncan as a brand are only made in the US. That's the pickups. These have really great, powerful pickups in them. Really, really excellent. And this is an unusual one. This one is actually crafted, let's see, get in there, in India. There were two phases, as I understand, when Squier did some runs in India. The first was, I believe, in the late 80s or early 90s, sometime around in there, and those are hit and miss, from what I've read. I have not put my hands on one. Hit and miss, and then some sort of major storm wiped the factory out, so they stopped that. This one is from 2007. I believe they made these like 2005 to 2007, somewhere around in that range, mid-2000s. And this, again, it's made in India, and it's made from Indian cedar. The body is Indian cedar, and it has a flame maple top to it with the sienna sunburst, the red sunburst. Beautiful instrument. I mean, really an absolutely gorgeous instrument. And it fades into that deep red. Just a gorgeous instrument, and very well crafted. I was very impressed. This is the only Indian-made guitar that I've put my hands on, so I can't say as a general rule anything. I've got a sample size of one. This one is fantastic. It is way, way better than it has any right to be. And so when you put that little bit of extra money, you go past the $300 range, then you start to get into a lot of new options with Squier. These vintage modified, they've got contemporary designs too. All sorts of really cool stuff open up. The biggest is probably going to be the Vibes, the classic Vibes. So on the higher end of the Squier spectrum, you have the classic Vibes series, and what these are is modern versions of historical spec guitars. And so they've got a 50s line, they've got a 60s line, and a 70s line. I'm waiting, I wonder if they're going to do an 80s line, or if we're just going to try to forget that the 80s happened. I don't know. But this here is a fantastic guitar. It is a 60s thin line Telecaster. You see it's got the F-hole there. The cover plate, as you can see here, the cover plate is not original to this, but it is a actual Fender cover plate, and a standard Fender cover plate will fit over that. I really like the aesthetic. I also like using it as a rest for my hand. It gives me a good sense of tonal location where I'm working down there, and it just gives a snappier tone from the way that the magnets in the pickup and everything. Anyway, so that was a very minor modification. $20-ish for one of these plates, an actual fender one. Clip, it's on there, and it's the kind of thing it's just pinched on so you can pop it right off. The easiest modification you can make on one of these. Anyway, this is a really beautiful guitar. It's got the roasted maple neck, and it is a one-piece neck and fretboard. You can see this has got the high gloss on it, and so it's slightly roasted. The color is a rich amber, and beautiful, beautiful neck work. Little bit, this one I got not new, but it was a factory restored one, and so it was basically a B stock, or whatever the reason that the quality control flagged it, they addressed that and then sold it. And so you can find some of those out there. This was the MIRC, I believe, had done this. I mean, just a gorgeous guitar. The wood on the top and back, absolutely gorgeous. The thin lines are nice because they're incredibly light. I mean, incredibly light. Small Telecaster body, and it's further weight reduced. Gives a lot of treble response. Really great twangy pop sound. Gives you some really good rhythm work too if you dial the tone down. Just, I mean, a really, really nice guitar. And if you just didn't know that it was a Squier and you're looking at this, that is a really nice fender you got there. I mean, this is where you're closing the gap, and I'm all for American manufacturing. Love it. I just can't often afford it. When I can grab it, I do. But it's rare that I can afford American-made guitars. But this one, this is an Indonesian model, which I think their Indonesian guitars tend to be really excellent. Again, the fact that there are so many of these that come through the restoration process with the B stock, that means that their quality control people are doing their job. That was an issue that I had with the G&L Doheny. Gorgeous guitar, but very sloppy finishing work. And for a guitar in that price range, more than this, these will run you $450-ish new, and you can find them used typically about $100 less, which also, one of the things about buying a Squier, it is a recognizable brand. Everybody knows it. It's not an off brand that nobody's heard of. And the fact is that you're not putting a huge investment in, and your investment is not going to depreciate as much. And this is what I mean by that. If you buy a $450 new guitar and you try to, and a year later, turn around and sell it on the used market, you're probably going to get $200, $250, and that's if you get it from another seller. You go to a pawn shop, they might give you $100 for it. Okay, so you know you're going to lose half your investment. Now, Squires, if you buy a $450 Squier, you can probably turn around and sell it for $350 and only lose $100. Again, it's not like it's an investment buying a new one, but you get it new out of the box, and you know you don't have to worry about what the previous owners have done to it. You know, and you're not gonna, if you decide in the end I did not want to play guitar like I thought, you're out $100. So it's a, you know, and the lower you get, you know, you buy a $250 one, you know, you're putting less money into it, and they hold their value, you know, reasonably well. It's not some junk instrument that nobody's heard of. These turn over quite quickly, especially the used ones. These turned over real quick, and particularly something like a classic vibe. This is not a guitar that you're going to need to upgrade out of, that you're going to grow out of anytime soon. I've got buckets of guitars, and this is still one of my go-to guitars. I love playing it. It's great to play on stage. It's so light. It's just particularly doing like rhythm work and twangy lead. This is a fantastic guitar, and you know, rather than break out my precious guitars, I'll take this out on the road, and if it gets dinged, it gets dinged. You know, it's not a huge loss. So these make really great gigging guitars, and as a first guitar, if you get a classic vibes, you're going to be set for quite a while. The other kind of Squiers that you'll find out there, now there's not many, but there are some signature editions, and There is a whole line which I have not gotten into yet. I just, you know, I had to pull back after I left my church job from buying, but I'd like to try some out. The Paranormal, and these are where they change and they switch things up. So it might be a Jazzmaster body with a Telecaster pickup configuration. So there's a lot of really cool stuff there as well. Now, this is actually a guitar I got from my wife, and she particularly this color. This is a limited edition, and so they do various runs of limited editions. They'll do just this kind, just that kind, this year, and so forth. This one is a 40th anniversary. I've also got a 20th anniversary from 2002, a Telecaster, but this is the 40th anniversary Jazzmaster, and this thing is so nice. You know, when we first got it, I was like, well, they could have done a little bit better with the work on the screws, and I kind of, you know, it took a little more setup than I really wanted out of the box. But once I got this thing dialed in, it's lightweight. It's got a beautiful matte teal finish. It's got the metal gold aluminum pick guard. It's got a very lightly, mildly roasted neck. It's a one-piece also, with the neck and fretboard integrated and the skunk stripe in the back. And it's got the split tuners, split shaft tuners, which also the classic Vibe has. Really, really nicely apportioned. It's got the extra electronics on it, the higher end electronics. It's got the Jazzmaster tremolo system. So it's got a lot going for it. It is a really, really nice guitar. It's super lightweight, feels super comfortable, plays really easily, has a lot of great tones. I mean, this is a very, I'm going to put it into the intermediate or even low advanced category. It's, you know, it plays as nice as an instrument twice its cost, we'll put it that way. If this is a $500 guitar, it plays like a $1,000 guitar. It just does. You know, again, if you ignore the S on it, you're going to say that's a, you know, really, really nice Fender you got there. It is a beautiful, very, very finely crafted, just awesome instrument. Lots of great tones you can get out of it, and not something that you would need to upgrade out of anytime soon. So are Squiers really only good for Squiers? As in, are they only for the entry-level beginner market? I mean, it's going to depend on your perception. You might not be able to even get over the name association and just the general vibe that it gives, that these are associated with entry-level beginner folks. But the reality is that these are not junk. As a brand, I've had generally very good takeaways from my Squiers. I've got, I think, about 12 of them currently. And overall, you know, there's a reason that these are the #1 thing I point to entry-level folks and say, get one of these. Don't get one of these, you know, alphabet salad, Chinese, never heard of it, off of Temu or something horrible like that. Go ahead. If you're really serious about playing, you need a good instrument, and Squier is at the very least good, okay? But beyond that, a lot of it's going to be how much you put into it, how much you put into playing of it. Are you going to make it sound good is going to depend on, are you a good guitarist, and have you progressed? Have you learned how to dial everything in and get the tone that you're desiring out of it? But it's not the kind of thing that's just going to frustrate you because they're just junk and they're hard to play and so forth. These are eminently playable instruments, and particularly if you're looking at the nicer ones like the classic Vibes, I mean, you can get your hands on something that you're going to want to keep because it's a really, truly good, playable, it feels good, it looks good, it sounds good. It's all good, man. These are quite excellent instruments overall. Now, is every single one out of the box going to be perfect? Absolutely not. But you know what? They have warranties and stuff like service and setup you're going to want to do on pretty much every guitar, especially entry-level ones. So, you know, that's just part of the territory. But overall, I have really come around to the brand. personally, and have added a number of excellent guitars to my collection that just have S's instead of F's. Now, would I rather have an American-made professional? Oh, ooh, yeah, it'd be awesome. But at where I'm at right now, I can't afford it. And unless you're a touring, you know, musician with regular gigging and lots of income, you're probably not going to be looking at one of those American professionals either. You'd be considering, should I consider going to a Squier and save hundreds of dollars and so forth? And my overall conclusion is yes, these are worth having. They're worth playing. They're worth collecting. They're very, very good instruments, and you know, we just have to get over the negative association. So as always, if you like my videos, please like, comment, subscribe to the channel. Love to get your feedback and hear. Shoot some photos out there. I'd love to see your Squires and your thoughts on them. You'll have a blessed day.